What's up, guys, and welcome back to Gaming News Weekly. Today we got a ton of stuff to go over. There's some big moves happening in the video game space, and we're going to talk about it. So, I hope you're ready, buckle up, and let's get going. First up, in a couple of small stories before we get to the bigger stuff. One of the first things this week that happened is that Tokyo RPG Factory, the makers of I Am Setsuna and Lost Sphere and Oninaki, have been absorbed back into Square Enix proper. I don't think this is a huge surprise, especially after Square had announced that they were going to refocus on the titles that they know and make sure they're up to snuff and not put out so much kind of lower key stuff. So this kind of makes sense, as Tokyo RPG Factory really was in charge of making small budget games. We'll see if this is going to be a good thing or not down the line, right? We won't really know until Square starts putting out stuff the next couple of years, but RPG Factory is no more. I don't think that's a surprise to anyone, as it's been a few years since Oninaki, and the understanding was that those games were supposed to be coming out at a pretty regular cadence, and they kind of stopped. So I don't think Tokyo RPG Factory has really been doing their own thing for quite some time. Next up is the game Spec Ops: The Line. Now, I'm not a huge shooter guy, these games aren't really my thing, but Spec Ops: The Line was officially delisted. So you can't buy the game. If you didn't have it downloaded, it's gone, right? So this is the downside of an all-digital feature, okay? There are a lot of good things that come with digital games, a lot of easier ways to market for companies, easier ways to get the game for us as consumers, but this is the downside to having things all digital, is they can just be wiped away. Publishers did make the comment that this is delisted because of licensing issues, but still the fact remains that this game that was something you could buy on the store is no longer available. That sucks. Next up, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is coming up soon. Man, I'm super stoked for this game. I know lots of other people are as well. But Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is doing something that other games have neglected to do so far this year, and in general does not happen quite the same way. Their review embargo is set for February 22nd, which is a whole week ahead of release date. That is some supreme confidence right there. I fully expect this game to be above the 90s, which will mark a year like 2023 full of marquee releases. This title is gonna be huge in the gaming industry, and for them to have that much confidence that they're gonna release that embargo that much time ahead to give everybody the time to decide whether they want this or not, they have full faith that Rebirth is going to sell itself, that the reviews will only help that sale. If you're even at all on the fence or excited to some degree of Final Fantasy VII, this should push you over the edge. There will be 20 minutes of gameplay later on today if you're watching this at the time of release. I'm not gonna watch that. I've talked about this before. I'm not interested in seeing more of Final Fantasy VII. I'm gonna play it. I don't wanna know more going in. I want to be as blind as possible and enjoy it when it comes out. But if you're interested, if you're still on the fence, that would be something to go watch. Embargo date a week before, that's big news. All right, now let's get to some of the bigger stuff. The first one is a rumor, okay? So it's a rumor. This isn't proven. This hasn't been announced officially yet. But PlayStation is rumored to be making a new handheld. Full market handheld that will play PS4 and PS5 games. This is really important. I think that the handheld market is clearly booming right now. It's a huge market. And if they could produce a handheld that can play their games made for their standard consoles, then they don't run into that same problem that they had with the Vita. And that was, for those of you who maybe, just get mad that they don't sell Vita anymore or whatever, the reason that Sony didn't support that as well is because the division of your teams that had to make a handheld game or a console game, and your console games sell for more and sell more because there's a bigger player base, all the things, right? So it didn't make sense for them as a developer, as a producer of games, as a publisher, right, to make for two different consoles that had to be separate game entities entirely. If they can enter the handheld market like Switch does, or like the Steam Deck, where the games can merge, so you just have your same development pipeline, but then they also are playable on this handheld, albeit with lower specs, but still able to play those same games. So your developers don't have to make more than one console game. They can still focus on one, but then it gets published to multiple consoles. That is a win for PlayStation. And I think that's the route they're going. It totally makes sense to me that PlayStation would invest in this, as long as AMD, because that's who the rumor is coming from, is that they're working with AMD to do a mobile chipset. They want it to be compatible, and there's gonna be all these things that they gotta work out. But I totally believe that that's possible right now. And if they can do that, I think that would be a complete win for Sony. Is it confirmed? No, of course it's not, and it probably won't be. I wouldn't expect this for another year or two, but this is big news. To have a fully compatible, portable system, I think could do crazy big numbers. All right, the next thing is a report that came out of gamesindustry.biz that says that 95% of gaming developers are working on or plan to release a live service game. First off, I call BS, okay? I know that gamesindustry.biz is a bigger kind of journalism section. I know that they have come out with a lot of things that have been real, but they've also said things that were not. First off, how in the world could you get 95%? There are so many development teams and studios out there. To say that 95% of all development studios are making a live service, that is a claim that is unsubstantiated. How could you possibly be able to say 95%? There is no way they've even talked to 95%. The only possibility is that they brought 10 groups or whatever group that they've had and did a sample and 95% of those, or close to, or whatever. Okay, maybe, but there's so many studios, and we know that a lot of them are not making live service games. Are some of them? Yes. But we have watched studios completely shutter their doors because of a live service game that just tanked. The money that goes in and the amount of money you're expecting to come back from that, and when it doesn't, it fails, and it fails spectacularly. So I don't think this report is even remotely true. Are there a lot working on live service? Unfortunately, yes, because I think you don't need very many of those. A couple of live service games is plenty. We don't have time as a player base to invest in all of those games. That's why they fail at the rate they do. They just go thrown into the live service dung heap where they go to rot and burn, right? Because they can't garner enough players to make it sustainable. So the idea that almost 100% of development studios are making one, I think is just complete ignorance. And it's just somebody looking for a title, which, you know what, I guess they kind of did, because here I am talking about it and it was all over social media when it first was out there. So I guess they got the headline they wanted, but they also should be looked at with some more skepticism than they were initially, because this report is ridiculous. Okay, next is huge news that's hot off the press as I'm recording. Xbox, we've had some rumors, we've talked about it here, of the possibility of some of their games going multi-platform. It seems to be, in the newest reports, that they are fully going third-party type platform. My understanding and what makes sense to me is that they will still maintain their Xbox and their first-party stuff. But those first-party games will not be exclusive to the Xbox as they have been in the past. In this day and age, we are in a different time frame in the gaming industry than we were 20 years ago. And Xbox doesn't need to win the console war anymore. If they could make themselves the biggest third-party distributor and publisher in the ecosystem, they still win, right? It's about money, not about notoriety, not about your name being out there. And they can have Xbox games as well as the Xbox and Game Pass as a option, and they spread themselves apart. They don't have to sell 100 million boxes and then the software on top. They could sell their box, get some for it, sell their games, sell Game Pass, put their games on PlayStation, put their games that are compatible on Nintendo, put their games on Steam, and their reach is multiplied 100-fold. That makes sense. I think people who have been die-hard Xbox fans are probably super upset because they feel like they're losing. And in a sense, I guess they did, right? That quote-unquote console war of, wanting to sell the most boxes. Yeah, they kind of lost. But not the same way we saw with Sega. Sega went complete third party and don't even have their own stuff anymore, right? I don't think that's where Xbox is going. I think they will continue to make their systems and make games for that system, but their games will then also go to the other system. Whether that will be day and date for games going forward, who knows? But for sure it will be later, if not day and date. The reports say all the big ones, Indiana Jones, possibly Halo, Hi-Fi Rush, which we've talked about before, Starfield, all the big games are reported to start going multi-platform. They've gotten some more PS5 dev kits to be working on those versions. To me, this makes sense for where Xbox is. They just, no matter how hard they tried, they couldn't catch up in the console space, right? The 360 versus the PS3, that was an actual battle, right? That was a good competition level. But once it came to the PS4 and the Xbox One, PlayStation just completely destroyed as far as that, right? In the console sales. Now, with our subscriptions and different things we have, that's not the only way to win anymore. And so Xbox is saying, well, here's the square that you guys are playing in. We're gonna come over here and play it outside, right? I don't think that's a bad move. I think that's really intelligent. And if they can do it right, where they still have their first party stuff, they still have their console, but then also sell their games onto multiple platforms, I think they win. From a business perspective, the money they could get between the subscriptions and the sales on all the consoles, that is a big win for them as a company. So as much as some people will be mad at this, I think that this actually is a good thing for them and actually can be good for us as a player, because that means games are more accessible on more places. I think this could be a really good move for us. We'll still have to see. It hasn't been substantiated yet. Xbox hasn't made a comment, at least as of the time of recording. It's possible it'll come out by the time I'm releasing this video. We'll have to do it again, but that's okay. So anyway, that's kind of what's going on. It's a huge hubbub right now. If you go on social media, that's what you'll see everywhere. That's what everyone's talking about. We'll keep an eye and watch that, but I actually think that this makes sense and probably not a bad move. Okay, we're moving on to some games that are coming out. That's kind of free games, right? This week we have PlayStation Plus monthly games are coming out. Those are available on the 6th. That's Tuesday, the time this comes out. So they should be all available now. That's Foam Stars, Roller Drome, and Steel Rising. It's like, I think I saw on Twitter, someone said the theme of this month is it one word or two? Pretty funny. But Foam Stars obviously is that new one from Square Enix, which is basically Splatoon, but with anime characters and stuff. I actually have heard a lot of good things about it, so that could be a really good one to try. PS Plus is a really good way to do that. No skin in the game to start, and then if you love it, you either have it or you can buy it, whatever. Roller Drome, I've heard rave reviews from loads of people about. It's kind of like a Tony Hawk meets shooter stuff, but it's really cool indie title. And Steel Rising is a Souls-esque type action RPG game. So, pretty good lineup, I think. If you have PS Plus, this is the essential tier. This is pretty good. In another week or so, we should get the stuff coming into extra premium tier, so we'll talk about that then. For Epic, you should be closing up the Doors Paradox, and then Doki Doki Literature Club, as well as Lost Castle are coming this Thursday. So obviously Doki Doki is pretty well known. It's a visual novel with a big twist, dating sim type game, but it's actually well written. So if that interests you, take a look at that. And then Lost Castle is very similar to like Castle Crashers. Take a look at that. They're free. Claim them. Have them on your PC. As of right now, I don't know anything about Game Pass, so we'll keep an eye out. That should come out soon. They usually have like kind of one beginning of the month and one later. So we'll see when we find out about that. But then we did get a couple of things outside of that in the gaming. One story I want to talk about just real quick. Grand Blue Fantasy. We talked about that here on this channel. I will do a stream of that, hopefully in the near future. I'm kind of getting my feet wet on it, learning about it first, but then we'll do it together. It's got like an 83 on Metacritic, 80 to 83, I think, on Metacritic. That's a pretty respectable score. I mean, for an anime title, a lot of times those get kind of downplayed. People don't love certain things about them. So far, I'm very, very new. Okay, I've only played a little bit. I'm liking it, but I want to get into it some more, and then we'll talk more about it. But it also, on Steam, managed to get over 100,000 concurrent player count. That's a big deal for a new IP like this. I mean, I guess the IP technically has the fighting games, but in the RPG genre, it hasn't been here yet. So a new game like this that isn't as well known, to have that high of a player count, that is good news for people who like these kind of games. For anime type games, for RPGs, that's a good thing. We also got a little teaser from the Pokemon company that they look to be remaking Black and White. Now, I don't know where you're at on Pokemon. As of right now, I don't care. I want them to do something new, do something fresh, make their games better. When they get there, I might come back around. I grew up on Pokemon. I loved Pokemon growing up, but after fourth generation, it lost its luster for me. If you still love them, good. No judgment for me, right? But I'm not interested in playing them until they can do something different and new. People are saying, hopefully Pal World will have that effect on them. I would love that if Pal World pushed Pokemon to do something. I don't think it has that effect yet, and it definitely hasn't had the time for Nintendo to do anything, even if it did. So these will probably just be standard remakes. But if you love Black and White, which a lot of people did, then this could be cool. Could be modernized and easier to access. All right, and that's it this week. Now, that's some big stuff, so make sure you comment down below on anything that's hitting for you, whether it's rumor of the PlayStation handheld, the Xbox games going multi-platform, or the ridiculous report from gamesindustry.biz. Let me know what you're thinking down in the comments. If you like this video, make sure you hit that like button. It helps me out a ton. Also, subscribe if you're new around here. We got news videos every single Tuesday, and then some kind of video on Thursdays, whether a review or a list or whatever. Thank you for watching. It means the world to me. You guys are awesome. So, as always, thank you for watching, and good hunting.